Are you looking for inspiration on a daily basis? Then check out Deal to Heal Teas. With our inspirational teas, you're sure to find something to inspire you. That's dealtohealteas.com. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear inspirational tea and be inspired all day. Let's go to dealtohealteas.com. Again, that's dealtohealteas.com. Hey guys, if you're enjoying this podcast, then I know you enjoy the Girl Dad Discussion podcast. I'm your host, Ernest James, and I believe the relationship between a daughter and her father is one of the most important relationships a young lady can have. And therefore, my mission is to promote the daddy-daughter relationship by sharing the voices of girl dads to the world. So check out our podcast on every platform where podcasts can be listened to. And if you want to watch the podcast, check us out on our YouTube channel. Again, that's the Girl Dad Discussions podcast with your host, Ernest James. Hey guys, this is Ernest James, host of the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. And I got a question to ask you. Could you buy me a cheeseburger? Better yet, could you buy me a value meal? Yes? Well, guess what? I don't need a value meal. However, for the cost of a value meal, you can support this podcast to keep us on the air. Just go to Patreon/Deal to Heal podcast and choose any one of the 3 tiers that's available. And if you just want to make a one-time donation, go to Cash App and make a donation to $E James, the number 418. Make a one-time donation to the Cash App, or again, go to Patreon to support this podcast and keep us on the air. Thanks in advance. Be blessed. Welcome to Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. On this podcast, my guest and I will discuss topics and ways to help us to heal in every area of our lives. I believe that everyone can live a life that is happy, healthy, and whole. So I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get to it. Welcome to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. I am your host, Ernest James, and I believe that everyone can and should live a life that is whole, healed, and healthy. And therefore, I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. Thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. If you haven't already, make sure that you listen, like, subscribe, and share our podcast on all of your podcast listening platforms. And also subscribe to our new YouTube channel. Our new YouTube channel is the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network. Now we are starting a podcasting network. On that network, you will find multiple podcasts on our podcasting channel. So make sure you guys subscribe to our new YouTube channel, the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network. And make sure you guys check out our partner, or should I say our sister podcast, which is the Girl Dad Discussions podcast, which is I am also the host of, which can be found on our YouTube channel. And also make sure you listen to them on all of your podcast listening platforms. That's the Girl Dad Discussions podcast with myself, Ernest James, as your host. Also, I'm going to let you guys know how you can win $100 from the podcast, but you got to stay until the end of the episode in order to get that information. So, as you guys know, we are a self-sustained podcast, and the way that we stay in business and stay active is by bringing you guys amazing products for you to purchase. That way we can pay our bills, right? So our product of the week is our very own podcast merch. So we have our podcast merch, so you guys can see it. Our podcast, Deal to Heal with E. James podcast t-shirts are now out. That's the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast t-shirts. Podcast merch is now available at Deal to Heal Tees. That's Deal, the number two, healtees.com. Make sure you guys are going to check that out. Also, you can make sure you check out our main website, which is the dealhealfulfill.org website, where you also find our inspirational teas and our ebooks. All right. So today, just like any other day, we are blessed with a guest, Miss Barron. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I am good. I am good. First of all, let me say thank you for being here, because you could have been anywhere else with anyone else, but you took out the time to be here with me and my listeners, and I definitely appreciate it. And I want to make sure I was pronouncing your last name correctly, because I knew it was going to be hard for me to pronounce the first name.
I get that all the time.
So do me a favor, introduce yourself to my audience. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do.
Well, thank you so much for having me. My name is Evancia Barron, otherwise known as Coach Evancia, and I am a certified life coach. And I'm also the founder and CEO of the Pursuit to Greatness Academy, where I work with women who feel stuck in life and they may lack vision and need some guidance to uncover their true potential. So I take women on a 90-day journey to go from where they are right now in their setback, whatever that setback is, because everyone has different setbacks. And I guide them from where they are to where they need to be. And I do that by helping them create a new life action plan for themselves. So that's what I do. I hold your hands and I give you guidance to uncover what you need to do for yourself. And you can call me the bounce back coach.
Nice, nice. I like it. I like it. So, Evancia, did I say that? Pronounce it right?
Yes, Evancia. Yes,
Okay,
you
cool.
did.
Okay. All right. So, do me a favor, because I know there's always a story before the story, right?
Mhm.
So, what was your story as far as who you were before? Um, I'm sure there was a impactful event that happened to you, which mostly most of us as speakers and coaches, there is something that happens in our lives that once that thing happened, is like, okay, after I make it through it, then now I'm going to spend my life to help those who may be going through the same thing that I've been through. So what is it? Tell us a little bit about your story of who you were, in your beforehand, and then that event that happened with you that made you say, okay, now that I've lived through this, I'm going to shape my life to in order to help others.
And well said, because that was really the thought when I decided to be a life coach. And that started about, I would say, about 10 years ago when I decided to uproot my life. I lived in New York, and to move to Georgia, which was a whole new state.
Mm.
And I didn't know anyone. And, I just visited to see what it looked like, with my then fiance. And we had plans for our lives. We were going to move to Georgia, start a life, start a family, and build our life there. But I was a bit naive, I would say, at the time, and I put a lot of trust in my partner at the time. So when I moved to Georgia, I found myself, before I could even unpack, I found myself heartbroken. I was already jobless. I was unemployed because I had resigned from my job to move to this new state to start a new life. No money. Well, I had to max out my credit cards, use up all of my savings, no place of my own to stay. And so there I was in a whole new state with no family, no friend, no support system, just down in the dump. And I didn't know where to turn, what to do, because at that time I didn't know anyone who had gone through what I was going through. So I didn't know who to reach out to. But once I figured it out and I was able to get some therapy, and I really got some guidance, a little bit of guidance to uncover, okay, you know what? You had something traumatic happen to you. You don't have to stay there. You have to make a decision. So I made a decision to pick up the pieces and move forward. But once I was able to go to land on my feet and move forward, that's when I decided, you know what, there are so many women out there who don't know there's better, there's more out there than your situation. And so it just takes you to pick up the pieces and really just make a plan for your life and get yourself there. And you may need some guidance and you may need some help, and it's okay, but you have to know who to reach out to get you to where you need to go, because no one should feel the way I felt. And the thing is, I always say is that I never felt like taking my life. I never wanted to do that. But the pain was so bad. It felt like my life was over, ended. I didn't even tell family or friends right away because I was so ashamed. So that was what I did. I'm like, you know what? Let me share with somebody else. If I can just help just one woman go from where I was to where I ended up after that situation, then that's what I'm going to do. So that's why I decided to be a life coach.
Yeah, yeah. And I can imagine I haven't been to New York and neither have I been to Georgia at this moment. But I can imagine that definitely was not only just being in a new state, in a new place, but probably was a culture shock from going from the big city, and then going down south. I'm sure it was a lot different. Like I said, I've never been to New York, but just from what I heard, it's just like, okay, a lot of movement. And I
It
can imagine
was.
just going south was just like a little slower, maybe.
It was a huge difference, because New York, the city that never sleeps, there I go, there's always something to do. And I had so many friends there, never a dull moment to go into a new state, not knowing anyone, and everywhere closes kind of early.
Yeah,
And I didn't know anyone. So it was a big of a shock. It was a bit of a shock for me
yeah,
at the
yeah.
time.
And also, I can imagine, and I think about, young ladies that may have a lot of going through the same thing that you've going through as far as in the dating pool, and some of them are even in their actual marriage where they found themselves just like in a place like, okay, now I'm all alone because this relationship didn't work out. And even I even know some young ladies who moved to another state, kind of the same situation. But they kind of moved on their own. It wasn't with a date or anything, or in a relationship, but just relocating to do something new. And everything started off, really good, and then just things just started to happen, and all of a sudden now they them found themselves, like in a shelter. And the same thing, like, you didn't want to tell anyone because it's like,
Mhm.
okay, I'm ashamed that this happened, even though it was the things that happened was kind of out of their control, but it's still like, okay, what is going on, what is happening? And then you have this sometimes a feeling of not hopelessness, but still sort of a helplessness, because you don't know where to go and you don't know the resources that you need. So is that kind of where you found yourself? And even with that, where did you go to kind of even get the resources that you needed to be like, all right, let me build myself back up?
Yeah. So the first thing after I was able to, cry my eyes out,
Yeah.
and I found a church, and that was one of the first places I went to. I found myself a church, and I joined some groups there, some support groups, and I was able to talk about what I was going through, and made some new friends. I joined some meetup groups. That's a thing, because sometimes when you are stuck in your situation, is even if you don't know what to do, but find a resource, find an outlet to get to get your mind off things. So that's what I did. I reached out to I made friends at church, and I joined groups and meetup groups. And then I also created my own meetup group when I wanted to find like-minded people, from where I'm originally from, which is the Caribbean, Dominica. So I actually joined the Caribbean group and also created one on my own, because I wanted to start building, getting my tribe back, building those connections, making new friends, and just finding activities to do, to be out there and connecting with other people. And so really, that's how I really built myself up, from going from not having any friends, not knowing anyone, and feeling so alone, and to really just building a network of people around me and a support system. So we need support. We need people.
Yeah, and I think that's so important. How much community plays a part in everything that you do. And then I always tell people I'm big on community. I love community, right? So my grandmother is the baby of 12,
Wow.
and
Mhm.
then she had 10 kids, and then my mom had 9. So our family is very big. So I'm like, all right, I'm big on community. Like, all right, somebody. I remember I bought when I moved into my first apartment. It was the first time I actually lived away from my family. because from us living together, and I felt so alone because I'm like, there's nobody here but me.
I
You
know.
know, I'm at least because I got 8 siblings. I'm like, if nobody but us was there, that's still 8 people. But now I'm in this apartment. I'm like, I'm the only one here. But I got
Same.
over it now.
I know, same here. My family is a bigger family too, back home. So when you're in that community, you have support. You always have somebody to talk to. But when you're away from family, it's a little bit of a challenge. It's so used to having that support system around you, and then it's gone. What do you do?
Yeah. We have to rebuild it. Have to
You have
rebuild
to
it.
rebuild. Yes.
So after some of the young ladies come to you, once they find you and begin to, and have you to coach them to either get through what they're going through. What is one of the ways that you teach them how to develop the bounce backness or the resilience that they need in order to, get over the things that they've experienced in their lives?
Yeah, so I would say the first thing is really to identify where they are, what steps they're in right now, because some women, they need therapy and they need counseling. So and we have to first identify, are they ready to move forward? Because some people are still stuck in that brokenness, and so they need to heal first. And so that takes additional work. So I have to identify first if they are ready to move forward. Once they are healed and they're ready to take control of their life, then we create an action plan. We figure out, what is your focus? What do you need to focus on? Because there is something that you're passionate about. There is something that you've always wanted to do, but you've never done because of whatever it is that's holding you back. So we identify what that is first. And once we do that, then we make a plan together in how they're going to get that done, how they either get a new job, change careers, or just start a hobby, or whatever it is. Everyone has different goals. So we first identify what that is so that we can move forward with that goal.
Yeah, and I think that's so important. And like you said a word that I talk about often, and that word is focus, right? And so I share my story of how I got through my suicidal ideations. And one of the things that I did was focus, right? And I had to take the focus off of me at that time because I was really focusing on the things that I was going through and the things that I couldn't change, because I was going through a lot of stuff at that time that added to my depression and all of those things that made me even really start having the thoughts of taking my own life. And I realized, okay, I have to stop focusing on the things that I can't change and focus on the things that I can, And so that was my thing. And I've had other therapists on, and I talked to them about, my viewpoint on that. And they said, well, Ernest, we tell you to focus on yourself. Because I said, well, I had to take the focus off of myself in order to, I actually started to focus on my daughter. And that was the beginning of me finding, something to live for at that time. And they said, well, they, on the other hand, said, well, Ernest, we usually teach people to focus on themselves to deal with, whatever they need to deal with to get through that time. And I said, well, look, I can't tell you what you teach, right? I'm not a therapist, but I can tell you what worked for me, right? And so as a reply to that, I always say, whatever you have to focus on, whatever the thing is that you need to focus on in order to give you the strength to push through, to give you the strength to move on, to give you the strength to do what it is that you need to do, then focus on that, whatever that is. So in my case, I had to take the focus off of myself because focusing on myself was making me feel even more helpless because there was nothing I could do to change my situation at that time. And so if you have to focus on yourself, because what maybe, there are some things that you can control to change your situation, whichever one it is. But I'm just big on making sure you focus on the right things. Like you said, finding that thing that you can focus on and say, all right, this is what I need to do to get me to that next level. So also, one of the things that you also talk about is, even regardless of the setbacks that they have, the downfalls that they have, and what those issues are, sometimes we see them worse than they are, right? Sometimes we see them as failures, and those same failures may not actually be failures. They may actually be working in your behalf, right? And so even in my own story, the last 3 years, I've been kind of going through a almost a metamorphosis, sort of coming out of a divorce and really having to refine myself. And I say now that my divorce was like the best thing that happened to me. And there's no knock to my ex-wife, who's very good friends of mine. We're still really close and really good friends. So it's not that. But with me going through the divorce, it set me on a path of realizing or redefining who I was as a person, which inevitably led me to starting a page on Instagram. That page got discovered by some people. They asked me to be on their podcast. I started coming on their podcast, which led to me starting my own podcast. And so just like these last 3 years has really been on a trajectory of moving forward in a whole new, way that I wasn't prior to my divorce. And so even though when you look at divorce and say, man, that's a bad thing that the divorce happened, that the marriage ended and all of that, which it is, but out of that came some amazing opportunities that led me even here having this conversation with you. And so when you're talking to the young ladies who may be looking at their situations as failures, how do you even talk to them to get them to see that, what, this failure or this setback may be just you stepping back in order for you to move forward even more?
Yeah, that is so true how you put that question, because we, in the moment, we see the setback, we see the brokenness, we see all the negative things in the moment. But once we able to get out of that situation and from the outside looking in, we can compare and see where we were at that time before all of the chaos happened to where we are now, that we are more focused on ourselves, what our goals are, and we can see the difference. We never really see it when we're in it. Once we get out and we look back, we like, oh my goodness, what did I get out of? And sometimes it's a blessing. For me, it was a blessing. Not that it was a blessing that I was hurt, but I needed a wake up call. And if I had continued on the way I was going, to get married to this person, and nothing against that person, we were just not meant to be. And I would have been miserable. I would have been so unhappy. And who knows where I would have been if I had gone in that direction. So to me, it happened to me for a reason. And it was a blessing for me because I was able to really identify what I truly wanted in life and focus on the things that I wanted, that I had actually put on the back burner, because in my mind, I was thinking of the relationship. This is what we need to go forward. And I was really more catering to my partner at the time than really to what I wanted. So because of the breakup and what happened, it just really opened my eyes after I was able to bounce back from that and really focus on the things that I needed to focus for myself. And then once I was able to pour into myself and do all the things that I needed for me, then, I was much happier. I was able to share my time with my friends, my family, and really just show other people, what, there is more to life than my breakup, my relationship is not my whole life. This was just a small part of me. And that just taught me so much and made me look to help other people and share what I've been through. And I would say even before that, I was very soft spoken. I wasn't someone to share anything. I didn't share with others what I was going through, or, I was more like I would say people would call me shy, on the shy side. And once that happened and I was able to share with others, and then they would really get value from me sharing, I'm like, wow, you know what? There's power in sharing, and there's healing that happens when you share. And so that's why I'm like, you know what? I want to be a coach. I want to help other women who are going through what I've been through, because it's okay to share. If you can help somebody else, why not share it? Because I would have loved for someone to do the same for me at the time. And that would have helped me to heal much faster than I did back then. But there is so much power in helping somebody else by sharing what you have been through. So
Yeah,
much.
yeah. And I think that's so important. And that's why I even, number one, started this platform and began to share my own story. Like I mentioned about going through divorce, going through depression, having suicidal ideations, and especially in this time period where the suicide rates is rising, and a lot of it is because we're not taking the time to talk, especially as men. And so men have this thing of not wanting to look bad in front of each other, not want to look weak, and so, but what I've learned is we all want to talk, right? We do want to share what we're going through, but we're all so worried sometimes about looking bad in front of each other. It's like, okay, well, I'm not going to say anything. But I've learned that if I'm open about what I've been through and just come openly share my story, that usually breaks the ice and gives other people a chance to share their stories. And they're so apt to get things out their chest. And it's like, man, by the time they finish, it's like, man, I really needed that. But if I hadn't said anything, then they probably would have never shared, and then would continue to carry those burdens on their shoulders. But by us walking in our own vulnerability and being open and say, look, this is what I dealt with, and this is how I overcame it, then it opens up the door for everyone to start having those conversations that we really need to have, right? Because I remember when I first started the podcast and I started talking about having the suicidal ideations and actually thinking of, really considering taking my own life because of the things that I was dealing with at that time. And one of my sisters heard the podcast and she called me afterwards and was like, how is it that you're going through everything that you were going through to the point that you wanted to take your own life, and yet none of us know? Again, I got 8 siblings. And she was like, none of us know, and I was like, well, we're not having the conversations. I'm like, nobody asks. And it's not like something you just volunteer and be like, hey, guess what, guys? I'm thinking about killing myself. It's not like that. Like usually we're hiding it and we put on a smile, and we push through for the sake of others. But when we're alone, then we're feeling some type of way. But even as I explained to her, like, we got to start having the conversations, and oftentimes I say when you ask somebody how they're doing, and first thing they're usually going to say is fine, but then ask the follow-up question, like, no, how you really doing, and really show that genuine interest to find out what that person is dealing with, because we never know what other people are holding, the things we're holding in our mind and in our hearts, that we don't show on our faces, and so sometimes just take that listening ear and somebody to really saying, like, are you really okay today? How you really feeling, to give us that opportunity to say whatever it is that's on our mind and on our hearts and get it off. And I think that's very important. Like you said, sharing is an instrument that I think we can use more of, and so that's why I'm really big and grateful for not just this podcast, but podcasting in general, because it opened up so many doors to have so many, conversations that we should be having anyway. But now we get to hear other people have the conversation, which it makes it more easier for us to have it. So yeah, I really think that sharing is like number one on the top of the list when it comes to how do we help each other. Just share what you've been through, and that will help each other. And so even with that, coming out of that, helping the young ladies that you help with, you mentioned about helping them to create an action plan for their lives. And that's one thing that I'm very big on as a speaker and going into high school. It's one of the things that one of the messages that I give on my keynotes is I ask the kids, what's your plan? Because a lot of times they don't have a plan for after high school. And I always tell them, like, you've been living someone else's plan up to this point. Once you started school, your parents had a plan for you, the school had a plan for you, and you go grade to grade to grade, following this plan that's been laid out for you. But once you hit 12th grade and you graduate, that's nobody has a plan for you. And if you don't have a plan for yourself, then you'll end up lost in the system or lost in the sauce, as they say sometimes, because you have no direction. And so I make them start to think about what is your plan and start creating a plan, for after high school. And, as you said, helping these young ladies, find a plan for their lives. How important is that for them to have an action plan for their lives? And what are some of the things that action plan may consist of?
Yeah, it's so important to have a plan because, if you don't have a plan, you're going to fail and you're just living everything by chance. And what has been happening all your life, living things by chance, here you are, you have nothing done with your life, or you maybe tried some things and didn't work out. and you just feel like a failure. But if you have a plan, you can always get back to it. And sometimes, even if the plan doesn't really go as, you don't follow through the whole thing, but making small steps, in that plan and accomplishing the small steps is still progress. But always having it written down, you can actually, keep following along, and you can just pick up where you left off. But if you don't have a plan, there's nothing to fall back on. There's nowhere to pick up where you left off. There's nothing to accomplish. Then what are you living for? What is your purpose? What are you trying to accomplish in life? So first, we figure out what once we figure out what it is that you want to do, then we decide, okay, well, the first step is 90 days. The first program I have is for 90 days. So 90 days is a lot of time to really narrow down on the action plan. So we divide it up into 90 days and weekly, daily goals, monthly goals. And we have to say what action items we're going to accomplish. Whatever is first, the first thing is identifying what we're going to focus on. Whether it's if career choices. And the thing about narrowing things down is that some people have so many ideas. So we have to really narrow down on a focus. You have to focus on one thing, because if you focus on too many things, they will not get done. And there is only one of you, and you can only do so much. So to be successful, we have to focus on the most important goal at a time. And not saying that the other goals are not important, but there's only enough time in a day to focus on one at a time. So we identify what that one is, and then we just together, not just me, because it comes from you, because again, it comes from the women, it's their lives. So I help them uncover what steps they need to take. And we just write it down together. We write it down, and I hold them accountable. I check in. So when we meet, I'll say, okay, where are you in your goals? What have you done so far? What are your challenges? What did you encounter? How can I assist you? Or if you had any thoughts, maybe sometimes they think, oh, you know what? Maybe I want to change. Maybe this is not the right thing. Because sometimes when we get into the end, our mind starts playing tricks on us, and then we have negative thoughts. So it's me really just holding them accountable and helping them to stick with the plan, because if I don't do that, it's going to go back to the beginning and start all over again, because it's like a cycle, because our mind always plays tricks on us. But just holding them accountable to get the goals accomplished, because again, this is what we discussed. This is what you told me was important to you. Getting this job was important to you. Moving on was important to you. Overcoming the loss of your mom was important to you. This is what we need to do. And so always going back to what was important to them, so that we can continue on the goal. I mean, and sometimes it's okay to change, but there has to be a good reason. I have one of my clients, believe it or not, she's 65. And one of her things was she's passionate about so many things, but it's like a wheel. She just keeps spinning, because nothing is really getting done. She's not really fully accomplished in one particular area. And so we had to really write down all those areas that she's working on, and write down all the reasons why they were not working. And they're all great areas, but we had to really focus on one. And so that was challenging for her in the beginning. And then we had to go back after a month, change it, because she realized after working in it, she wasn't really as passionate as she thought. So there's so many things get uncovered in those 90 days. And so by the 90 days, you really know, okay, you know what, this is truly what I was meant to be doing. Because it really takes a lot of work on their part. It's not just on me. I pull it out of them, but it's up to them to really do the work and really think through and write down everything that comes to mind.
Yeah, and I like I like what you said with focusing on one thing, because one thing, as I know, especially as a creative, you have so many ideas, and then sometimes by having so many ideas of things that you want to do or want to create or want to accomplish, you get the what they call the paralysis of analysis, because you have so much information that it just stops you from doing anything,
Right.
and all you can think about is the information. But you don't actually move in a positive direction or any of it, because you have so many ideas. And it's like, all right. And which is one of the practices that I actually had to do was, just let me write down everything just to get it out of my head. And then once it's on paper, then I could just choose one. Okay, I'm going to focus on this today. I'm going to focus on my speaking business today. I'm going to focus on the podcast today, and just break it up into separate things. And I think that's really good. And also, I think that the 30 days, I mean, not 30 days, 90 days, you got to do 90 days. And I think they say it takes like 30 days to learn a new habit, you
Habit,
know. Yeah. And so I think that's great because it gives you that time to really focus in and begin to put these things into action until it becomes second nature. And oftentimes, a lot of times we get stuck in that, those new things and those big ideas. It's like, okay, but you got to settle yourself to make it okay, not just something that you said that you like or something that you said that you want to do, but really start putting it into action, putting it into your everyday lives. Like affirmations. You want, okay, yeah, I want to do affirmations, but you got to actually wake up every morning and do them.
do
You
it.
know what I'm saying? But then as you start doing them and doing them every day, then it becomes second nature, and it's like, all right, time for my affirmations, time for my upliftment of myself, and all of those things. So I'm
I would
so
add
happy.
one more. I would add one more thing though, and once you've identified that one thing after the 90 days, and you've figured, okay, you know what, this is what I'm doing, you can add other things on after. We can go back to the list of other things, but the first part is really getting, the first whatever is most important to you. That's where your effort should be in first, and then once you've mastered that, then you can add on the other goals. So I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah. And then also once you write it down, at least what I found, that you are actually be able to look at everything that you wrote down and see how some of those things are connected, and then you're
Right.
able to say, okay, I can take these three things and put them together as one activity, and really push into that. And that would change so much, in your life and your expectations and things that you're trying to do, instead of having these great big thing with all these ideas again, but being able to focus on one or a group that all are similar enough that you can put them together and then they become one thing. You can put it together that way, and it works for you. So yes, I think
Mhm.
that's amazing. I wanna before we get out of here, I want you to have the last word, right? I want you to have the last word. I want you to leave us with a word of expectation or inspiration or however you feel, right? I want you to leave us with something. And I definitely want to allow you to leave your social media information and where they can find, artists can find out to work with you, for the ladies to connect with you. And so I'll give you a couple of seconds to think about that. To my listeners, thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Make sure you guys are checking us out on our websites. Again, our dealhealfulfill.org, which is our main website. That you can go there, you find out everything about what we have going on, our workshops, our the podcast, the products, different things that we have, and also the ability to book me to come out to speak at your church, school, event, whatever that is, or to even have me come out and do a workshop for your organization. You can find all the information at dealhealfulfill.org. Also, you can check us out on our inspirational tees or our inspirational t-shirt line. Also, where our podcast t-shirts are also available there at Deal to Heal Tees. That's Deal, the number two, healtees.com, deal to healtees.com. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear an inspirational tee and be inspired all day. That is our tagline. Make sure you guys go there. Check out the t-shirts that we have there. I'm sure you'll find something that you like. And also ebooks by ejames.com. That's ebooks by ejames.com, which is where we host all of our ebooks. We have several ebooks that are available right now. One of my favorite, which is the core four, which is the core four values that every daughter should get from her father. That ebook is there. I've been doing a lot of traction with that book, and that book is actually the foundation of the Girl Dad Discussions podcast, where I have other girl dads on that podcast and daughters to talk about the relationship between the dads and the daughters. But you can find that ebook again, the core four values that every daughter should receive from her father, at ebooksbyejames.com, as well as some other ebooks. And also, you can take on the opportunity to become an affiliate of our ebooks. So if you read our ebooks and you really like them and you think that others should like them too, then you can get paid for it by sharing your own affiliate link to your friends and your family. And when they buy, you get paid. All right. Again, that's ebooks by ejames.com. You guys might want to go and check that out. Also, I've been blessed to be a part of an organization called the Forgiveness Mission. And what we do, we have free virtual workshops every quarter of the year. We talk about forgiveness, talk about what it is, what it's not, forgiveness of self, forgiveness of others, and everything surrounding forgiveness. It's a virtual workshop. You can take it on your laptop or on your phone, and it is absolutely free. You just go to forgivenessmission.com in order to register, or just go to Eventbrite and look up Forgiveness Workshop by Forgiveness Mission, and you'll be able to find where you can register. Again, it is completely free, and we're doing them every quarter of the year. So whenever you're listening to this episode, either one is coming up or one just finished. But either way, if you go to you go to forgivenessmission.com, you'll be able to sign up for that, for the next one that's coming up. Last but not least, I told you guys that I would tell you how you can win $100 from the podcast. So you can win $100 from a podcast by joining our super subscriber contest. What does that mean? You must first subscribe to our YouTube channel, to our Facebook page, and to our podcast on Spotify. Then text the word WIN, WIN, to the number 866-326-0730 to qualify to win $100. The contest is ongoing and is random, which means that anytime once you're in, you can always win. We can pull your name at any time. Just make sure that you text the word WIN, WIN, to the number 866-326-0730 to qualify to win $100. And make sure when you text us that you leave your contact information, because people are texting the word win, but you don't leave us your contact information, so we can't even tell you if you are a winner or not. So make sure that when you text the word win, WIN, to the number 866-326-0730, you also leave your contact information so we can contact you if you are our $100 winner. Again, Miss Evancia, right? Good.
Yes.
Okay, good. I want to make sure I got it right. Thank you so very much once again for being on the podcast and for sharing your expertise and experience with our audience. I want you to have the last word, and so the floor is yours.
Yeah, first, I just want to say thank you for what you're doing in the community. You're doing such amazing things. So I'm definitely following and looking at all your events. So thank you. And for the listeners, I just want to say that a setback is just an opportunity for a comeback. I always think about when I'm driving and you come to a speed bump and you have to slow down to get over that speed bump. That speed bump is just your setback. But once you get over that hump and you just take off, that's your life. You just go sail into the sunset. Just think about the roadblocks. Speed bumps are just, that's all they are, just a slowest point in your life. And don't let that hold you back from what you meant to be doing. Just, focus on what it is that you need to be doing. Find a coach if you don't have one. If you don't want to have a coach, you can find family that you trust. You can find some friends that you can get some really good advice from, that you trust and you look up to. But just find a support system. Don't stay where you are. There is so much ahead. There's so much life ahead for you if you just focus on your goals and make a plan to move forward. So thank you so much for having me. Again, I am Evancia Barron. You can find me on social media platform, Evancia Barron, or at Coach Evancia. And you can also go to bouncebackfreegift.com for a free gift on how to bounce back after a setback. Again, it's bouncebackfreegift.com. Thank you again for having me.
All right. You're very welcome. We can't end it no better than that. To my listeners, thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, where our mission is to help people to deal, to heal, and to fulfill, to deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. Until next time, you guys be blessed. Hey guys, I know you're enjoying the podcast. However, don't forget to join our text line at 866-326-0730. That's 866-326-0730 in order to receive text messages with new events and things that is going on and new episodes as they release. All right, see you in a minute. Thanks for listening to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Remember to listen, like, subscribe, and share. This episode has been brought to you by Deal to Heal Teas. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear an inspirational tea and be inspired all day. Let's go to dealtohealteas.myshopify.com. Remember, our mission is to help you to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for listening.